Hi everybody, it's Julie from the MFRC Programs Manager. It is so great to see everybody here for today's Fireside Chat. As you can see, we have a lot of people who are joining us this week, and I will introduce them all in a second. Before we start, I just want to remind everybody that this is a session that's open. We do these live for a reason. We really want to hear from you. If, as we are going through, someone mentions something that you want to follow up on, if you have a question, if something wasn't clear, please add those to the comments. We have someone who monitors that, and we would love to be able to address that. If you have a comment that you feel might be a little bit too personal and you don't want to air in a public forum, please feel free to send a direct message. We will get back to you after the session. So please don't let that be a hurdle. Today we're talking about mental health supports. Next week is Remembrance Day, and Remembrance Day is looking a little bit different. So we really wanted to talk about some of the supports that were there and some of the things that families and members might be going through. So I'm going to do a round table, tell you who I have with you, and then we will start. Padre Michael Allen from Garrison Petawawa is joining us. We also have Major Dwayne Rennick from Base Mental Health Services at Garrison Petawawa. Stephanie Adam is joining us from the Family Information Line. Rhonda Miller is a Family Liaison Officer at the PMFRC. Lieutenant Colonel Ian Clark is joining us here today. He is the Commanding Officer of Personnel Services at Garrison Petawawa. And Claudia Beswick is here. She's the Executive Director at the PMFRC. Before we start, Claudia, do you have any updates for business resumption and things that are happening at the MFRC folks should know about? You're on mute.
Sorry, no significant changes since our last chat last week. We continue to be diligent in the COVID-19 safety protocols and processes. I know the team is really missing everyone and is looking forward to doing some face-to-face activities, but we'll continue to monitor the situation, and as soon as it's safe to do so, we'll work towards whatever that looks like, going back to in-person activities. Our priority will always be to ensure that both the families participating in the programs and that the staff that are facilitating the programs are comfortable and safe with the protocols. But I will take the opportunity to let everybody know that 18th of November is our annual general meeting. It's happening virtually at 6 o'clock in the evening. All of our documentation will be on the CAF Connection website, and that'll be up in the next couple of days. Our theme this year is Family Matters. And it's really about highlighting and reflecting on the importance of family, building that connection with an extended family, and providing a network of support. So stay tuned, and hopefully we can see some of you there.
Perfect. Colonel Clark, do you have any updates you want to give us from the Garrison side?
Julie, thanks for having me today. On the Garrison side, there's really no recent change. We certainly respect what goes on in the local area. We have weekly meetings where we assess our status compared to what's happening in the area around us. The base is busy, but it is still not open. So unless you have business on the base, we ask you not to come on the base. Things do change though, and we update it every Friday. So on Fridays, we do an update of services, whether they're open or modified or closed. And again, we do that with the best medical advice, trying to strike a balance between meeting our requirements and keeping people safe and healthy.
In the comments below, we are sharing a link to the Garrison Facebook page. So if you follow the Garrison Facebook page, you're going to get all those latest updates as you go. Colonel Clark, I'm going to stay with you. We have since March been giving updates on when things are opening. So that gives us a little bit of an idea of how long we've been doing this and how long families have been dealing with that sort of that isolation and feeling on their own. Remembrance Day is coming up next week, and for many of us in military families, Remembrance Day means going to a ceremony and having other people around you and connecting with one another and being able to share that way. It's going to be really different this year. Do you want to talk about a bit some of those changes and what that means for members?
Julie, thanks. This year is unprecedented, I think, at least for me and probably most of us. I think back to March 13th when Claudia and I met in the office as things started to change around us, and we're looking at the future, and we're looking at March break, and we're looking at maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Clearly, the situation with COVID and its effect on us is continuing. The pandemic has affected a lot of ceremonies and rituals and events, and today we're going to talk about the effect of the pandemic on Remembrance Day. It will have an effect, absolutely. There are restrictions and rules about gathering sizes, even when we're outdoors. And when we think about the members of the community who might be vulnerable, anytime that we're bringing a group together, we increase the chances of transmission. So the decision has been made that for CAF personnel, so if you're in the Canadian Armed Forces, the direction is that you will not attend an in-person Remembrance Day event unless you've been ordered to do so. And these are a small group, so at Cenotafs, there will be small parties there, but those are all controlled centrally. And so the direction is not to just go to a ceremony on your own. I can't recall ever giving direction like that before. This is absolutely unusual, but we're living in a very unusual time. And it's going to be tough. Remembrance Day is that day of the year when we think about our own experiences, perhaps, and the effect on our comrades, on our families, on friends we've had that have fallen, perhaps. And it's usually an emotional time, and it's a time we have to get together as well, perhaps with other people that have gone through the same experience. And it's a pause from the day-to-day work, and it's a chance to perhaps talk about things with folks that have gone through the same thing. Perhaps it's done at a Legion or a mess following the ceremony. That is not going to be an option this year, and we need to find ways maybe to still commemorate and have that connection while respecting these rules that are put there for our own health and safety. There's a number of things available to us. We could stay at home and watch the national ceremony on Facebook Live or on TV, and still have that sense of connection. Perhaps I'm still deciding what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll put on my DU with medals and I'll stand on my front porch outside and have my own moment of silence at that time. That's an option for us as well. And then the trick then becomes to find a way to connect afterwards. And certainly doing it in person is probably not an option unless we're inside our own little bubbles. And so perhaps there's virtual ways within your networks to reach out to friends, connect. But maybe it's also an opportunity for this year to focus on family, perhaps. It's perhaps an opportunity to speak to your close family members about what you've been through and the things you're thinking about, if you haven't done it already. Something that you wouldn't normally do if you're at the Legion. You might be there with your friends and comrades, and then perhaps you don't talk with your family about it. Whereas this year maybe is an opportunity to do that if you're ready to do that. But I do acknowledge that we may have people who might be home alone during the day because perhaps their spouse is at work and their kids are at school and they're home alone. And perhaps that'll be I can understand that might be a tough time. And so today we're going to talk about some of the supports that are available to folks, and there's a wide range of supports. And I think that's maybe the theme of today, is that there's a lot of options, both for members of the CAF, veterans, and their families, because they're all affected by this. And each situation might have a different response, but there's usually not just one support available. There's usually multiple ones, all with their own things that they can do, and that there's never a wrong way to reach out, and that there's no shame in doing so. And that if you're feeling, sad on November 11th and you're home alone, that might be very normal and understandable, but that you're not alone. And we'll talk going forward about things we can do to help each other going through that day. And I know I've been through a number of different ceremonies. I've been on a ship, I've been at Vimy, I've been overseas, and I've been alone, and they each have their own challenges. I just ask all of the CAF community, veterans and families, to, if you are alone and isolated, reach out, and also reach out to each other. And we'll talk about ways to do that going forward. So I guess that's just how I would kick it off. And I'll turn it back to you, Julie, and we'll go through our panel.
Thank you. Padre Allen, we're talking about traditions changing, and I think that whenever something changes that's sort of heartfelt, you have that feeling of loss. I think that a lot of us are dealing with senses of loss, with family traditions are changing. We're not seeing the people that we love. You talked to us a little bit about that, the idea of the sense of loss, also Remembrance Day, the idea of people that we have lost and how the impact of that, it stays with us. How can the Padre team help a member and their family who might be having some difficulties leading up to Remembrance Day?
Right. Well, I'll answer the question. But first, I'd like to say I'm going to probably repeat a few things that the Colonel has already mentioned. That we all, every loss is grief, and grief is normal. So allow that to happen. Allow it to be. All right. It's all right. There's no problem with that. Some people are losing because Remembrance Day was very important, so they're losing that. But you know, the Remembrance Day ceremonies, funerals are actually for the living. It's a rite of passage to help process that grief. So we've got a challenge in front of us because of the restrictions of COVID and such whatnot. We can't do it the normal way we would do it. The Colonel's given us some brilliant ideas of how to do it. You know, we're only limited by our imagination and the COVID rules, right? So he gave a couple examples. There's many ways that you can honor those who have passed. This is like the Colonel said, it might be a great time to emphasize on the family. This might be a time to teach your children about the sacrifices soldiers have given and do something together with them. A little ceremony in the backyard, in the house, wherever, however it works. Join the services. I will be speaking at the Petawawa service, and it will be taped, and it will be later available to watch. Same with the Pembroke one, the national one. Join your hometown Remembrance Day service. I'm from Kamloops. You know, that would have been an option for me to go because it's fed live. I could then at that time maybe join my hometown one and connect with people there, connect with my mother and my brothers and sisters at that point. So really seriously, we're limited by our imagination, but I think it's really important that you do something because the
Okay. While we're waiting for Padre Allen to come back, he made the point earlier when he was talking about. Oh,
was I gone?
Yes.
Oh, well, I apologize. My internet apologizes. Where was I? Had I mentioned going to your hometown?
Yes, you mentioned going to your local ceremony and connecting with family that you have there that you may not have seen.
Right. So just do something. Make sure you do something because the rite of passage of a ceremony helps you heal, helps you grieve, and helps you move forward. As far as the chaplains go.
Okay, so we're going to come back to Padre Allen because he seems to be a little glitchy right now.
Oh, and also what's out there, just so you're aware, just 1 second.
We keep losing you. Okay, so we're going to come back to Padre Allen. So what we're going to, he made a point about teaching children. The PMFRC, every year we used to do pizza and play where there was an opportunity for members to bring their kids to the museum. They talked about the traditions, they talked about the exhibit, they talked about Canada's contributions to the wars, and it was an opportunity to start that conversation. It is one of my favorite events all year. So we brought it online, and starting early next week, we are going to be doing a series of little video clips from the museum. We're going to be talking about some of the exhibits that are specific to members in Petawawa and the history of Garrison Petawawa, as well as some of the war exhibits. So if you're looking for opportunities maybe to start those conversations with your kids, maybe that's something that you can use. Padre Allen, we're going to swing back to you at the end, so it'll give you a chance to do some troubleshooting there. Rhonda, as a family liaison officer, you work with the families of the ill and the injured and the fallen on a daily basis, and you see how these feelings of grief and loss affect not only the member, but it spreads to the entire family. It's something the family deals with as a unit. Can you talk a little bit about the family and some of the changes they might see in their loved one and some of the things that we can do to support one another? Because I think we sort of downplay how much of an effect that we have on our loved ones from our own home.
I think what we're seeing as the pandemic goes on and things become or are still uncertain, we don't know how long these things are going on, we see more stress in the home. So the stress is felt by the kids, by partners, and it's really important to recognize how it shows up, because sometimes it doesn't look like people are grieving or they're stressed out. It looks like bad behavior, or the kind of management strategies that not only kids use, but sometimes parents use. they're helpful for a time, but they're not always the healthiest thing. So we might see sometimes more substance use or irritability, withdrawing, and telltale signs are always not eating, not sleeping, lots of dreams, and these show up in the kids too. So when these things start to happen, it's really, really important to talk about them, to connect with each other, to try to see underneath the behavior that these are simply management strategies, and we're all doing our best to handle the stress. And now coming up to Remembrance Day, the stress has even increased because we're kind of fixated on what we've lost nationally, globally. And if we could change it a bit and just kind of take a lesson from Mother Nature, this kind of slowing down time, this inward time. We're not very good at letting go and grieving. We're not very good as a society, as a culture, of feeling these uncomfortable feelings. And if we can just normalize them a bit, like was already shared, it's really important to grieve, to feel, and model it for our kids. They're feeling it. We'll see how it shows up in them. So I love that suggestion of talking about it, sharing stories at a level that kids can handle. But you're not alone. We are hardwired to connect, and it is so healing. So share with your kids. Tell them what you're going through. Ask them if they're stressed too. And I think it's really important to balance, to titrate. That we can get really easily overwhelmed when we take it all as one big chunk. But we need to feel these things interspersed with a walk, with a funny movie, with whatever it is that kids can handle. All these emotions are welcome. We welcome them all. We lean into them. And I really hope that even past November 11th, going into the winter, that it's not such a dark time, but it's a time to go inward, to really make our homes nests, safe places, safe havens. And what else was I supposed to say here? Yes, so suggestions, those are suggestions, and we're here. At the mental health team, we have social workers, registered psychotherapists, and we are available in different capacities. We're available for counseling, but we're also available for single sessions. So even if you want to touch base for one session and just get some suggestions, what can we do, or ask questions, that's always available to you. And we're pretty flexible at times. The best way to get a hold of us is to call in to the Family Advocacy Coordinator, and she's available at the PMFRC cell side. You can leave a message. And please, if we don't get back to you, yes, it's going to be shown. Hey, Julie?
Yeah.
If we don't get back to you, something's gone wrong. You might have been on a cell phone when you left your message and the message is garbled and we can't understand your phone number, or you forgot to leave it, because sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we forget to leave phone numbers when we leave a message. So please, if you don't hear back from us within 2 or 3 days, call back or send an email. We're here. We're here to support.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you.
A lot of really important points there. And I love the point you made about not focusing on the behavior, which is the easier thing to focus on, but really to take that time to think about what's behind that. Major Rennick, thanks for joining us. This is your first time we've had you on one of the Fireside Chats. Thank you. Base mental health is is an important component of this puzzle, especially for the members. Can you talk a little bit about what base mental health does and how someone would get a hold of you?
Yes, so thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here and to do this. So mental health services on the base. So we are located in the Warrior Support Building beside the main base clinic building. Soon, some point in the new year, that will be changing as we all move into the new clinic, which many of you may have seen. I get many changing dates, so I wouldn't even want to guess when that's going to be. So there's really two basic types of service in terms of mental health care. One is psychosocial care, which is really dealing with life stressor stuff. So everything and anything that is impacting a military member, a serving member. It could be It could be marital stress. It could be deployment related. It could be anything. So anything that is short term that can be dealt with in a generally speaking 10 or less sessions or somewhere in that neighborhood. That's not a hard and fast rule. Falls under our psychosocial care. We have social workers and mental health nurses primarily on that side of things. The other side is our general mental health care, which is more intensive services are required, whether that is individual therapy, psychological services or assessments, psychiatry, and that is doctor driven. So that requires a doctor's referral. So on the general mental health side in particular, we are very connected with the CDUs and the doctors administering that, because care is really needs to be highly connected there. So that is our two main programs, if you will. So a lot of the crisis walk-in stuff that happens is going to fall under psychosocial. So we have a daily intake person. There is always someone assigned to deal with short-term stuff that comes up. Right now in the COVID environment, we do have some restrictions. We're filtering the number of people coming in the building or when they're coming in the building, so we don't have clustering numbers coming in. So it looks a little bit different. The best way to get a hold of us is to call extension 4600, which is our mental health reception. And from there, you will be attached to our intake worker and things start rolling from there. I do want to mention also, and this is a little bit of a crossover with MFRC services, but in our spectrum of care, we do offer services, marital services. So spouses are included in that, and to whatever degree, family therapy as well. We don't currently do family therapy like in our building, but we can certainly refer for it, and we can be an entry point for family and marital therapy as well. So yeah, really, we've talked a little bit about there's no wrong entry. Ideally, we want you to call us, and if you need to come in, we'll have you come in. But if you go through the chaplains, if you go through your chain of command, if you go to see the doctor and you need to see us, there can be any number of points, or you can call yourself. So there's no wrong way to get a hold of us. And I think that's really important, despite how we want to organize ourselves. When it comes down to it, if you need services, come in, walk in, we'll see you, even if that isn't what we ideally want to be doing, because we do not want any barriers to care that way. So right now, our main way is by phone. And again, if people need to come in and be seen directly, we'll have that. We'll make sure that happens. I think that's all I wanted to say on that. So I wanted to also talk about the mental health continuum model. So that is a really good way to take a snapshot picture of how you're doing yourself, or how a family member or a colleague or coworker might be doing. And basically it runs on a continuum from I don't know if it's up in view, but running from green is your ideal healthy place that you want to be. Most of us are not green for very long. Most of us probably fall into the yellow because we're stressed about stuff, we're dealing with things. So green is what we want to work towards, and we get there and then we become stressed again. And so life is a constant battle to work towards the green. When we're more in the orange and red, where there's more pronounced injuries, that's where professional services may be more warranted, and where your family is really going to notice that things are going wrong, or people around you are going to be worried about you. The time to worry about it ideally is when you're feeling triggered in that yellow zone. And of important note on that is there's 6 domains within the mental health continuum. So it isn't an all or nothing thing. You can be triggered on and drinking too much, or sleeping too much, or whatever the case might be. So you can be orange or red on one thing and green on something else. So it's not a static thing. It's not all or nothing. But it's a dynamic look at where am I right now? Where am I in these domains, and where might I need help?
In the comments below, we're going to share a link to a graphic on CAF Connection. And in that chart, it actually has specific behaviors and specific signs that you can look for. If you're not entirely sure sort of how to plot yourself on that continuum, it'll give you some guidelines from there. Stephanie, thank you for joining us. We've been talking a lot of very Petawawa specific things here, but we know that we talk about family. A lot of times people think about spouses and children, but family also means parents. And in many cases, the parents don't necessarily live in Petawawa, but you may have a son or a daughter who's serving at CFB Petawawa, and you live somewhere else. And you might be wondering how these parents might be wondering, how do they reach out? The Family Information Line is a national resource. Can you talk a little bit about the services of the Family Information Line and who can get a hold of you?
Yes, for sure. So the Family Information Line, we're all social worker, we're all trained with the military world. We're all bilingual, it's confidential, so you can call at every time that you want, and we are open on the Remembrance Day too. So what we are is, it's a service where you don't have to give any information. So it's really confidential, and we are not strict. So you can be a parent, you can be a best friend, a sister, a brother of a military member, a veteran. And you can call this line for a lot of reasons, either for, you're looking for a phone number, you want to reach a Padre, you don't have the phone number, you can call us. You can also call us if you're in crisis and you really need to talk to someone, or also just if you just need to vent and just have an ear. Sometimes it does happen that people, they're calling and they're just like, my family doesn't understand me. They are not in the military world, so they don't know how hard it is. Can I just talk to someone? And we're here for that. It's also possible to sign up to have ongoing emotional support. So a counselor would call you every week, every other week, every month, depending on what you would like. And the counselor will be there for you to talk about whatever you want, whatever you feel like. So it's really important to know that you don't need to be a military member to call the line, because we do know that there's a lot of parents that they're calling and they're like, there is no services for us. We want to talk to someone. We don't know who to reach. So it's possible to call us, and we're going to give you every option. So it's not because our service is here that we are the best option for you. So sometimes there's people that they're calling and we're giving them the MFRC phone number or the CFMAP or whatever. So you can always start by us and we will be able to direct you in the good direction.
And one other thing that I wanted to mention, we call it the Family Information Line, but people can reach you by email as well. Is that correct?
Yes, so we do have like an email too. So and we also have a Facebook page that it's possible to reach, and we're also taking care of like 4 specific groups. So it's called My Voice, parenting, special needs. So if you want, you can always just send a quick Facebook message or a quick email just to ask us how to reach this group and who to talk to. So sometimes if you're a little bit too shy to call and you just don't want to talk to anyone, just a quick email and someone will either call you, give you the phone number that you need, or we can also, it happened a lot that I chat through Facebook Messenger with people.
Perfect. So those are all good options for people who may not necessarily feel as comfortable calling. Claudia, the MFRC, we offer supports all year round. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of supports are available specifically for family members of CAF members?
Sure. So I think we're very lucky, very fortunate here in Petawawa that we have a fairly large mental health team. We have 10 on the team, and they work really collaboratively together. So much like what Rhonda said, there's couples, there's adult, there's counseling sessions for children and youth as well. So the team overall is managed by our clinical manager. And like Rhonda said, we have the family advocacy coordinator, 3 family liaison officers, 4 clinicians that work with primarily the CAF community and their families, And we also have a youth counselor, and that youth counselor is dedicated to working just with the youth in the community, but also has dedicated space in Bishop Smith High School and Valor High School. So that's really unique for youth that don't want to connect with their parents to say, I'd like to see a counselor. They can have direct access to that service, which has gone really well so far in Petawawa, and we're very happy to be able to have that collaboration with the high school. For those families who don't know, we've talked a lot about the Family Advocacy Office, and that office is that first point of contact. So whether you're looking for information, whether you want community resources, or if you feel you or one of your family members are in crisis, then this would be the person that you could potentially contact. Not every situation warrants a social worker, and it could just be kind of what the family information line offers, or that office will also do the same. These are the options available for who you want to see in the community, or if you prefer to go to the family information line, they provide all the options there. This position is really critical within the organization. It supports the family to the whatever service that they feel they need. Sometimes if it is not a social worker that's required, and there's a connection that they're going to be better supported by a local community partner, then the family advocacy coordinator will do that warm transfer with the family. And so it's a one-stop philosophy, really, and it helps families navigate these services easier. And the family advocacy coordinator will stay connected to the families, and will conduct any intakes that are required if they need to go see a social worker. And, sometimes depending on where we are and if there is a wait list, that's the one person that you could call to answer questions or just stay on top of things. And if you're really worried, how can we better support you? So I want to talk a bit about pre-COVID. We had the mental health walk-in clinic that happened at both of our locations every Wednesday. And although we can't do that in person, we are doing it virtually. So the mental health team is continuing their supports virtually, and the team has extended their single session model to allow more flexibility so it better suits the families. So again, through the Family Advocacy Office, you can connect with them, and they will set you up to provide the services you need and the time frame, that works best for you and your family. So although we offer a really diverse number of programs, know that we can't provide everything that every family may need, but we really do have a great collaboration with our community and base partners, much like what you can see on the call today. We stay connected, and no door is the wrong door. We'll facilitate that warm handover with families to those resources who you would get referred to. We all really have a common goal, and that's to support the clients and the families, the veterans, the parents, whoever's out there that feels they need us within the military community. So we sustain all of these various relationships and partnerships, and we try to explore new strategies depending on what the trends are in the area. The mental health team is very connected to the local resources, as is the base. We keep each other informed. And if you're a family member or a parent who wants to reach out to the MFRC and you're not sure which MFRC that is, you can call the Family Information Line, or on the CAF Connection site, there's a little map. It'll show you where you are and where your closest MFRC is to you. So I think, the most important message is just call us. If you are in crisis, or if you want to talk to somebody and it's about deployment, it doesn't matter what number you call, we'll direct you to the right person. It could be a special needs thing. We know through deployment, going through this COVID pandemic situation and then dealing with the deployment on top of that, it doesn't necessarily mean you need a social worker, but maybe it's a combination of support from the mental health team and support from the deployment office. So let us help you navigate that. Just give us a call.
Perfect. Padre Allen, I've been watching you to the corner of my eye, and you seem to have been stable for the last little while. So fingers crossed, we're going to come back to you. Is there anything else you wanted to add from your earlier answer?
Well, depending on who you talk to, then know if I'm stable. Anyway, I just want to carry on with what I was saying there. I'd mentioned that throughout the valley, different churches are open, and many are doing a remembrance thing. So I know that the big church there on the highway is doing one. The Anglican churches are doing one. Zion Lutheran's doing. Other churches. Some of them like you to phone ahead to let you know that you're coming because they're set in safe sections. There's you got to wear a mask, you got to sign in. There's protocols you have to follow, but that might be one way that you can then be in person honor. We're having a remembrance service at the chapel as well. But as far as the contacting the Padres, you can contact us by phoning the base number 5611 613-687-5611. Or 5511, and then 5611 for the duty center. The duty center will then take your number, contact the duty chaplain, and then they'll call you back. That's after hours. During work hours, the local is 5434, and we will get you connected. If you're really hurting and you say, you know what, I lost somebody recently, and I really want to do something, we might be able to do a small ceremony, but that's a limited resource there. But but we're there to help you. We're there to help you process the grief, to counsel, to sit down. If you're concerned, if you're a parent or a relative and you're concerned about a soldier, you can reach out to us as well. Every unit has a Padre dedicated to it, and we can tell that chaplain to non-intrusively check on so and so, make sure that they're good to go. This happens a lot. And there's sometimes that lives have been saved because of it, and whatnot. We can also help explain how the military works sometimes. It's a mystery to some folks, all right? And who can reach out to us? Everybody.
Perfect, thank you. I just want to follow up on a point that the Padre just made, Colonel Clark. I think there's a lot of people that that might be having some issues and they don't want to come forward, but the people who love them know that there is a concern there and they're not entirely sure where do they go to identify that? How can they help, especially if they don't necessarily live in the area? Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Julie. I'll start by saying there's always privacy, right? So, and we also have to respect that. But I will say that if there's a family member that's concerned about someone that's in the CAF, there's a number of ways that they can address that. I'll speak to one of those at the end, which is about addressing it with their family member. But I think all of the folks that have talked today are one of those portals, one of those points of contact that anyone could reach out to say, hey, I'm concerned about my son, my daughter, my husband, my wife, my brother, my sister, and whether it's the Padres, whether it's base mental health, whether it's a family liaison officer, the family information line, the garrison duty officer, any of those portals will eventually get to the right person and can then do an assessment. I'll say that as a member of the chain of command, so I'm a commanding officer, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a counselor, I'm responsible for people. There's privacy for your family member. So I won't know what is wrong. I don't need to know what is wrong. All I need to know is things that I should not do or situations that I should not have that member go in that could make their problem worse. I don't need to know why. So their privacy is protected. And there might be a stigma. People think that if there's a problem that it could limit their career perhaps, or they don't want to cause any trouble for their family member. Well, you won't be causing trouble for them. We would much rather know that there's a concern and then make sure that it's addressed than to ignore it. And there's no punishment, there's no repercussions from the chain of command if someone is seeking help. Absolutely not. And you can have a wonderful career with a long career. It doesn't limit you, especially if things get treated, especially if they're caught early and the right people are able to make the right interventions, then everything proceeds. And just to make that point about privacy, I just want to pick on something that Rhonda said about welcoming our emotions. And I'll say Army guys sometimes aren't great at this. And that might be true of everyone, but as we get to Remembrance Day, often we're in our military groups, right? And you're on a parade, you got to keep it together. And grief is something we don't always show very openly, but I'll say from a personal perspective and the risk of oversharing, at one Sarah, I was at a school a few years ago with my daughter, and she would have been 12 or 13 at the time. And I wasn't speaking, it wasn't a parade. And both of us started crying, and I was crying openly in front of a group of people. And I tell you what, in terms of it was, I think, a great experience for me to sort of openly show that, with a family member. Now, granted, that was at a ceremony. It was at a school, and so we don't have that opportunity this year. But I'll just pick up on that. It's okay to show your emotions, especially grief and sadness, and it might be entirely appropriate. Maybe this year is an opportunity to do that because we're in a more intimate setting, perhaps, with just our family members. I'll say, just sort of to close out before I turn it over, that to members of the CAF, so those that are in a uniform or perhaps a veteran, we should always be honest with ourselves, but we should also listen to the people that love us. Just listen, because they're probably onto something. If they say, "Hey, how's it going? Are you okay?" They're not just asking as a greeting. They're probably telling you something when they say that. So I would just say, listen, think about it, reflect on it. And, it's one thing when a coworker says, "Hey, how's it going?" which is, a normal greeting, which is just a way to start a conversation. But when someone that you trust, someone that's close to you, whether it's a family member or a coworker, when they say, "Hey, how are you?" they're probably saying something, and you should probably listen.
I think that's an excellent point. These are the people who know you the best and who care about you the most.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that anybody else wants to add before we leave? I think this is such an important topic, and I think if there's a resource that's out there, I want to make sure that we get that out. All right, thank you all for joining us. Check the comment section below. All that information is below. There was a notice in the Petawawa post that was shared on Facebook. We're going to add a link to that in the comments below. It has all the telephone numbers of base mental health people on base. Family information line we're going to share. We're going to share the information about the Padres and the PMFRC. Reach out if you need support. We want to be there for you, and it's important. We are not doing a fireside chat next week because it is Remembrance Day, but we will be marking the occasion, and we will see you again the following week. Thank you for joining us.